Policy, policy, policy. Policy, policy, policy. Policy, policy, policy. Policy, policy, policy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Joe Citizen Show. This is Roger Homefield, and I am Joe Citizen, but so are you, and boy, do we have our work cut out for us between now and the election. You know, folks, today, as we speak, we have the worst administration of all time, the worst administration of all time. And with only weeks left, I feel like America could be like an ice cube in the palm of our hands, and we cannot let her melt away and slip through our fingers, because there will be no coming back in 4 years if we lose this one. It'll be a one-party system with the Democrats even further weaponizing all of the Department of Justice and all the government agencies as they already have. But in 4 years, government agency collusion would become unbreakable, untouchable, and America would be irretrievable. Since day one, this rogue administration has been overseeing the border invasion of America. Now that is a threat to democracy. Kamala, Biden, Obama, and Hillary, and all of the Democrat operatives and the media are guilty of inciting violence against President Trump. And it's clear the Democrats will not back off of their baseless attacks. They need to understand in no uncertain terms that if one single strand of orange hair is disturbed on Trump's head and any harm comes to him yet again, tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of Americans will know who is responsible. Now it's time. It's time for the Democrats to either explain to us exactly how Trump is a threat to democracy or shut the hell up. I cannot tell you that so much is at stake in this election. I can't tell you that so much is at stake in this election because everything is at stake in this election. In fact, the Kamala victory would undo everything that all of our fallen heroes, all of our fallen soldiers ever fought and died for. Everything. They died to preserve our American way of life. They died for a free and sovereign America. They died for our constitutional rights. They died for our Judeo-Christian values. And they died for the American dream. And they also died knowing that they were on the right side of history. They did not die so radicals could come in and turn America over to the United Nations or the failed European Union or the New World Order globalists. They did not die so their Judeo-Christian values could be destroyed and replaced by Islam. They did not die for an America who cannot decide if she is for or against baby-burning terrorists. And they did not die to see the American dream mocked and flushed down the toilet by our enemies. You know, the achievable American dream was a house with a picket fence and where in a sound economy, just one of the parents could earn a wage to support the whole family. But everything we know America to be will be forfeited by Kamala, who is too incompetent for a press conference, nevertheless becoming president of the United States. Now, if I was nominated to run for president of the United States, the first thing I would do is run out and look for the media to talk to. Wouldn't you? Look, ask yourself, do we want a president who is transparent or opaque? Genuine or phony? Spontaneous or scripted? And boy, is she scripted. We need a strong wartime president if we're going to have any chance at having peace. Keith Ellison, Attorney General of Minnesota, is a cultural jihadist. In 2010, he led the Democrats in their sabotage of the Pete King hearings, depriving America from learning the truth about the Muslim Brotherhood's extensive infiltration. Keith Ellison's state of Minnesota, they are blaring the Islamic call to prayer over loudspeakers throughout the city of Minneapolis for all to hear 5 times a day. This, of course, is all possible because the Islamists have been given special treatment ever since 9/11. Now, Keith Ellison is on Kamala's shortlist to be Attorney General for the United States. With him as Attorney General for the United States, critics of Islam will eventually be charged with hate speech, just like they are within Sharia law and in Europe. Within Islam, any speech critical of Islam is considered hate speech, whether it is true and accurate or not. We've been walking on eggshells and kissing their ass ever since 9/11 in this country, and it needs to stop before we end up just like Europe, who is falling to Islam beyond the point of no return. The so-called anti-Israel demonstrators at the campuses, they're still on the campuses, which the media has managed to keep off the news these days, but they look like and they support terrorists. And they are still there because Kamala Harris gives Hamas legitimacy and encouragement. And our policies have hamstrung Israel and they have prolonged the war. In fact, America pulled a Hamas defeat out of the Israeli jaws of victory. Kamala Harris and the Dems still to this day have never asked Hamas to surrender. The Dems just won't accept an Israeli victory. Barack Obama single-handedly resurrected the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and he's the only man in the world who could have done so. And no one has ever answered my challenge to refute that statement. And now, our Harris-Biden administration has single-handedly saved Hamas as well. I thought we were supposed to do away with terrorist organizations, not save them. Kamala's family is pro-Hamas. And her father, just like Obama's father, is a well-known hardcore Marxist. This is general information. America has never been this unstable. It's never been this dangerous to live in America. America has never been so illiterate. We've never been so divisive, fickle, and unreliable until this worst administration ever. So why exactly is this administration the worst of all time? Well, for starters, they nosedived our robust, booming economy from best to worst, plunging the entire world into man-made inflation, making everyone substantially poorer. They frantically pushed gender insanity and pronoun madness down everyone's throat. They encouraged children to have their genitals altered and amputated without parental consent or knowledge. They demand that men play in women's sports and share their showers and locker rooms. But that's just a warm-up. That's only a warm-up because they have committed unforced errors that have resulted in the deaths and suffering of millions of people. This administration created 5 trails of death at the border, Afghanistan, Russia, Hamas, and the ivermectin cover-up, which alone caused 250,000 deaths. We all know about the 100,000 American deaths a year from fentanyl. But, arguably 21 million people have crossed the border. Even if it's half of that, how could it be possible that our Attorney General, Merrick Garland, would say that he would fight tooth and nail against voter ID? How could it be possible that the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, would take on as his cause de célèbre that he would fight tooth and nail against voter ID when everybody knows we've got millions and millions of people that crossed illegally? Do we need it spelled out for us? Do we really need it spelled out for us that this rape of America has all been about their stinking votes? In Afghanistan, Biden left behind 10% of American citizens. That's his own statistic, about 10% of Americans that were there. Without a word about going back for them. There was never a word further about it. Oh, yeah, about 10% of American citizens are left behind. And our allies who helped us for 20 years, our allies and interpreters, they're getting knocks at the door every night ever since we left. And they're getting tortured and murdered in front of their families. And ladies and gentlemen, how about the entire female population of Afghanistan, who for 20 years were living under relatively Western rules, and now all of a sudden are left to be in a lurch under the ruthless, barbaric Taliban. Back to the honor killings, getting your nose cut off, or whatever the men decide, because they are slaves to them. They just were recently told that in addition to not being able to show their faces in public and have to wear the full face coverings, they can no longer be heard in public. Women, how do you feel about that? All of the women in Afghanistan, on top of all the other atrocities associated with Sharia law, now they're being told in public, in the public square, they cannot be seen and they cannot be heard. Hillary, what have you got to say about that? Kamala, come on out, Kamala. What have you got to say about that? And the Democrats claim to be the party for women? Give me a break. It's a disgrace. And in Ukraine and Russia, how many hundreds of thousands of civilians and young soldiers are being killed in this meaningless, endless war that we provoked and helped create? That's right, folks. We helped provoke and create this war by pushing for Ukraine to be a NATO country on Russia's border. Remember the Cuban Missile Crisis? We didn't like the missiles being 90 miles away in Cuba. We almost had a nuclear war over it. So how do we get off expecting Russia to put up with NATO being right on their border? Then we have the Israel-Hamas war, which has been sabotaged by Kamala Harris, which has emboldened terrorists worldwide. We also funded Iran with billions of dollars, which they used to sponsor Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. With Biden, this is all about his votes, which is repugnant enough. But with Kamala, it's for votes, but it's really her ideology. And she'll agree to an arms embargo that will destroy Israel. And then she threatens us by asking, gee, what would it look like? What would it look like if Trump had this mass deportation? Well, the question really should be, what will America look like if he doesn't? And what do you think it'll look like, Kamala, when the barbarians overrun Israel? And we've already seen just a small taste of that. Regarding ivermectin, this administration knew it worked, but they smeared and censored and canceled everyone and anyone trying to tell us about it, including the world's most foremost epidemiologists like Dr. Harvey Risch. This administration actually prevented millions of Americans from getting a therapeutic cure. Think of that. Meanwhile, all these millions of people came over the border without any vaccines. But if you were in the military, or if you were a policeman, or a teacher, or people that we need, many were forced to take the vaccine or be fired. Kamala Harris can only dupe the public and run out the clock. She vehemently defended Jesse Smollett. Remember him? The liar claiming that big bad MAGA people attacked him, which was total garbage. And now she is trying to Smollett us. That's right. We're getting Smolletted, folks. You have to wonder. I think not, but Democrat voters even realize that the, quote, middle class, close quote, will have an enormous tax hike once Kamala lets the Trump tax cuts expire? Look, Trump is Trump, but Kamala is a fraud. She's relying upon Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, which, among other things, includes ignorance of policies. This is an existential election because if Trump loses, we Americans will lose our Constitution and freedom. And for Israel, they will lose their lives. Meanwhile, Europe is being swallowed by and emboldened by Islamism, and their long overdue resistance to it and their rising up is being beaten down, hushed, and censored. And we're next. And there's only one person that can protect the American Judeo-Christian values and our culture from Islamism, communism, and globalism, and that is Donald Trump. There's only weeks left until this election. And like I say, it feels like America's an ice cube in the palm of my hand. And I'm just afraid that it could be melting away. And we cannot let her melt away and slip through our fingers. There's only one America. We won't have a second chance. They want to take away everything from Christmas to the Boy Scouts to the American dream. They want to strip away all individuality, rugged individualism, and personal achievement. But we must be the keepers of the American dream. We cannot possibly reward an administration that is the most dishonest, devious, and incompetent administration in history. Seemingly, everything they do is a scam. John Brennan, James Clapper, and his Gang of 51 was a scam. The Department of Justice, their attacks on General Flynn was a scam. Same for George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Peter Navarro, Roger Stone, Mayor Giuliani, Steve Bannon, even President Trump and his attorneys. The Mueller report, impeachment 1, impeachment 2, the attack on Justice Kavanaugh were all scams. The attack on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, the government censoring drugs, the masks, hospital protocols, and vaccine mandates were all a scam. Hillary and the DNC paid to have Trump framed as a Russian spy. That and the Russian collusion, quid pro quo, the Hunter laptop, Biden's mental health was all a scam. The Green New Deal is a scam. Charlottesville, the handicapped reporter, servicemen are suckers, the Arlington Cemetery, dictator on day one, price controls versus policy, oil reserves versus policy, and grossly inflated job numbers, all scams. And of course, lastly, the border is a scam. The mail-in ballots are a scam. January 6th, the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran deal are major scams. And sabotaging Israel with our schizophrenic Israeli policy is a scam. And sliding in a presidential candidate with 0 votes, with no time for public vetting, and the candidate's subsequent refusal to have one single legitimate press conference, that's one hell of a scam. Folks, Kamala wasn't even raised middle class. She was raised upper class in a mansion in the richest county in Canada. Her father was a well-known hardcore Marxist professor at Stanford, and her mother was a biomedical scientist at the Berkeley National Laboratory. And you know what else? Kamala never even worked at McDonald's. She never even worked at McDonald's. Now, who would want to elect someone who felt the need to lie about something like that? Or even brag about it in the first place? Not to mention the 300,000 missing children from the border, or the million illegals this administration secretly flew into America's interior, and the million others they secretly paroled, abusing the system, not even counting them as illegal. Just days ago, the retired Border Patrol chief testified at Congress that Biden administration directed him not to disclose arrests of illegals who had ties to terrorism. This is how wantonly reckless this administration is to throw caution to the wind when it comes to America's security and American citizens' security, as long as they can cover their own asses. This is a daily event with this administration, and they cannot be rewarded. A Kamala victory will end the American dream forever and undo everything our soldiers ever fought for and complete Obama's fundamental transformation. Now, we've seen what his fundamental transformation looks like so far. I think we've seen enough, haven't you? With a Trump victory, our battle for a sovereign America will just begin. But without Trump, we won't even have a battle to fight. So now is the time for all good Democrats to come to the aid of their country and follow RFK and Tulsi Gabbard. After years of rolling in his grave, JFK is finally smiling again. Joyrides are always fun and exciting, but never end well. If you know people in swing states, call them. No parent wants to live to see their child die. No patriot wants to live to see America die. We can never, ever let that happen. This is the Joe Citizen Show. I'm Roger Homefield. Thank you for being with us.
He was framed by Hillary, FBI and NBC. A deplorable hoax, he was right all along. He was right about the wall. Open borders, fentanyl. Everybody walking across without a wall. Stranded in Afghanistan, left to face the Taliban. Never have we left our people behind. Don't tell us what to say. Don't tell us what not to say. Freedom of speech is the American way. So keep your hands off Christmas, the flag and our traditions. He was right about that, he was right all along. You may not wanna hear it, some of you may fear it. Trump always ended up right, he was right all along. You may not wanna hear it, some of you may fear it. Trump always ended up right, he was right all along. Policy, 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 policy.